Time for Down to the Wire here on Vegas Insider. Kevin Rogers with you here on this Thursday night as we kick off week 5 of the NFL. The Colts and the Broncos meeting up. The only action across the sports landscape tonight. No Major League Baseball. Wild card playoffs begin tomorrow. No college football inexplicably tonight. Bunch of games tomorrow. You have UCF beating SMU last night. But no college football. So stand alone, Amazon Prime. That's it. Colts and Broncos tonight. And we'll get more of a breakdown of that game coming up as far as where the money's going, where the tickets are at with Patrick Everson in about 15, 20 minutes. Joe Osborne is going to join us in just a moment, chasing that paper, 11 a.m. Monday through Fridays here on Vegas Insider. It's time to do our contest picks for the week. So we'll talk to Joe in just a moment about that. Joe had a great week. He went 4-1 last week. I did not. I went 2-3. So we'll talk about our picks coming up in just a little bit. And also I'll have a Major League Baseball best bet for tomorrow coming up a little bit later on. There's 4 good games. I think these 4 series are fantastic coming up. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, best of 3s, Padres, Mets, Cardinals, Phillies in the National League and the American League, Mariners, Blue Jays, as well as the Rays and the Guardians. So I think 4 really good series. And it should be pretty interesting. They're all best of 3s, all at the same venue, so no travel. But I got one best bet for tomorrow coming up in just a bit. But before we get to that and our NFL best bet in just a second, I want to tell you about the handicapper heat check. And we're going to check in with Scott Pritchard. That's right. See the cashier, Scott Pritchard. And Scott has been absolutely on fire recently for us here at Vegas Insider. NFL, MLB, he's been en fuego. He's won 7 straight NFL picks. He's extended his streak to 16-4 to the last 20 picks. Also in Major League Baseball, he's hit 4 in a row. He's on an 11-2 run. Save $10 on Scott Pritchard's Thursday Night Football top play, or save even more by signing up for a 7-day subscription. Just click on the link in the description below, and the $10 discount will be applied during checkout. That's your handicapper heat check. Stay hot, bettors. All right, now it's time for my best bet for Thursday Night Football. I know the choices aren't really great tonight with the Colts and the Broncos, but I'm going to take the points of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, obviously, they've had some struggles with Matt Ryan, a quarterback, and somehow they beat Kansas City, and they have losses to Jacksonville, in which they were shut out. They lost to Tennessee at home last week. They tied Houston, and they should have lost that game down 20-3 in the 4th before tying it. But Frank Reich, though, 5-0 against the spread last year as a road underdog, and he has not been in that role this year. So far, the 2 road games, they were heavily favored. Well, I guess the Jacksonville game, they were laying 4, but they were a touchdown favorite against Houston. Now you're getting points with them, and they were favored last week against Tennessee and lost. The only game they've gotten points in this year was Kansas City, and they ended up winning that game outright. I'm just over this Bronco team this fast. And I had them in Survivor week 2 against Houston, and that was awful. I had them against San Francisco week 3. It was awful. But yet somehow they won the Houston game. They snuck by the 49ers in week 3. They lost to the Raiders last week. It was Vegas's first win of the season. But I have no faith in Russell Wilson. I have no faith in the offense. Defense has been good. But Javonte Williams out for the season with a torn ACL, their top running back. And I'm just not trusting this Denver team. I can't do it. And you hope that Matt Ryan's got something left here in the tank. But I'm going to take the points of Indianapolis here in this standalone game tonight as my best bet in the NFL. Pray for me. So with all that being said, let's look at our contest picks for week 5 in the NFL. We bring in Joe Osborne from Chasing That Paper, 11 a.m. here on Vegas Insider. And Joe,
yes,
you went 4-1 last week. You dominated this thing. So you have jumped me. What is that? What'd you just drop?
Just a mess down here in my basement.
I didn't know if that was like a tape measure or I don't know what it was. 11. What are you? 11-9 now in the circa?
Yeah, I think so. A few above 500 there, but you got to be more than a few above. You got to be a lot above 500 here if you want to compete in this thing. But it's still young here. It's still, if I can keep stacking some 4-1, sneak a 5-0 in there, you got to avoid the losing weeks. All right, so. But yeah, there's time to make up some ground here. So hopefully we can replicate the success of last week here in week 5.
I mean, you need to go 18-2 in 20 games. Like, it's unbelievable to have a shot at winning this thing. That even if you were 13-7, that's still not good enough. But I've gone the flip flop: 3-2, 2-3, 3-2, 2-3. And what I tell you, Joe, two shitbags last week. The two New York shitbags, Giants and Jets, were my two winners last week.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, sometimes, it's I got a lot of ugly teams this week, but ugly teams cover the spread. The worst teams in the league are still going to cover the spread, a handful of times, maybe even in half of their games, over the course of a season. It's the same thing with Major League Baseball, Kevin. Like, the shitty teams in the league are still going to win 50 or 60 games over the course of a season, right? So it's not as easy as just taking the best team. Like, if you've been betting for any amount of time, you should know that, right? So yeah, I got some ugly ones this week.
All right, start it off. Who is your first pick for week 5 in your contest picks?
Yeah, speaking of ugly ones, I'm going to take the Houston Texans at +7 in Jacksonville. Let's not crown the Jacksonville Jaguars just yet. Got off to a pretty good start, a respectable start. Absolutely. I think it's fair to say that they're better than they were last season, but everyone just kind of wanted to crown them after those two games over the Colts and Chargers. We got a long way to go, though. And if you dig into the stats, I think it's too close to justify a 7-point spread. The Colts or the Texans keeping things relatively close this season. And they smacked this team last season. I know the Urban Meyer and all that stuff, but still, they beat them by 14 and 16 points in their two matchups last season. So the Texans have a little bit of fight in them, Kevin, and I think that they're going into this game thinking that they have a good chance at winning. So I'll take them to keep it inside 7.
Well, I'm going to reiterate that one. We don't normally have the same picks, but I'm going to go with Houston also. We'll get this one out of the way. And Joe pretty much laid it all out there. The Jacksonville's in that double revenge spot, which normally is good for the underdogs here. And yes, Houston, last week they could have mailed it in against the Chargers. They had a shot there. They had the ball. They got the ball back down 27. What was it, 27-21? I think they had held to a field goal maybe. And they could have got a touchdown to go ahead. The Chargers got a late touchdown, so then kind of put it out of reach. But Houston at least has been competitive in all their games. They lost to Chicago at the gun. The Indianapolis game they blew back in week 1. The Denver game I mentioned, they were right there. They just couldn't get in the end zone. So I think Houston's really worth a look, and especially Jacksonville after blowing that 14-0 lead at Philadelphia last week, thinking they could win 3 straight. Now you're going back home. Now the expectations have flipped. Now all of a sudden you're favored after being a dog the first few games. So let's go with Houston. I agree with you, Joe, on that one. And your second pick for the contest this week is?
Yeah, let's keep the ugliness going here, Kevin. I love this hook I'm getting with the Chicago Bears. So take them at +7.5 in Minnesota versus a Vikings team that's been a bit underwhelming this season, running into a little bit of luck here this season. But once again, if you dig into the stats, these teams are even in net yards per play. Now, I know the Vikings have played a tougher schedule, but they're not the team that is getting a 7.5-point cushion here. So I know the big issue with the Bears is the passing game, but if there was ever a game for them to have a little bit of success through the air, this is it. The Vikings really struggling against the pass, not getting any pressure on the quarterback. So once again, a game where I think the underdog can keep this one from getting out of hand. I think that they can keep this inside of 7 points.
All right. I'm going to stay in the NFC North. I'm going to back the Green Bay Packers in London against the Giants coming up Sunday morning. Now, I had my eyes firmly glued to that Packers-Patriots game this past week. I'm still alive in the survivor pool. Had Green Bay, obviously no points involved. You got to win. But the Packers didn't look too hot for a while. Aaron Rodgers had some nice drives later in the game to pick it up. And Bailey Zappi, he did enough to keep the Patriots in that game, even though they had that touchdown after the play clock ran out. But I think now that Green Bay going off to London, facing a Giants team that's feeling pretty good about themselves. Look, teams that have struggled, wins are wins. I know Chicago's not very good, but wins are wins. And now Daniel Jones, you don't know his status, how healthy he is. Past Saquon Barkley, there are no other weapons offensively on that Giants team. And I think Green Bay, after a couple close games against Tampa Bay and New England the last 2 weeks, I feel like there's a blowout coming for the Packers. And after they weren't too sharp against New England last week, I think Green Bay takes care of business going overseas against the Giants in this game in London. So let's go with the Packers minus the points against New York for our second best bet, my second best bet. Now, here's Joe's third best bet.
Yeah, now one that's a little bit easier to digest here, Kevin. I'm going to take the 49ers minus 6.5 on the road in Carolina. So the 49ers absolutely a bit up and down here so far this season. But this is a case of maybe the best defense in the NFL versus maybe the worst offense. So I'll get into some stats here. 49ers defense, first in yards per play allowed, top 6 on both third down in the red zone. They're elite versus the run. They're getting a ton of pressure on quarterbacks. They have the second most sacks, and they still haven't allowed 20 points yet in a game this season. Meanwhile, take a look at the Panthers' offense. Just brutal. 27th in yards per play, dead last on third down, 28th in the red zone, 26th in yards per pass. Baker Mayfield sitting there at 30th in quarterback rating. So I know the Panthers' defense is pretty good, sure, but the 49ers might win this game 10-0. I don't care as long as they cover the 6.5. So I think that they, hit their momentum here and get 2 wins in a row, 2 covers in a row coming off that game on Monday night.
Yeah, in San Francisco, you got to see, Joe, if they're due for a road win. They had the 10-0 lead at Chicago and lost in that terrible weather. The Denver game, they were up 10-5, and the Broncos got the late touchdown. So San Francisco is very close to being 4-0. Some things went their way, and they should not be losing to this Carolina team coming up on Sunday. Now, for my next pick, Joe, I'm going to go with an ugly one. I backed him last week. It looked good for a little bit. I shouldn't say it looked good. It was promising for about a half and then fell apart. I'm going to take a shot with the Washington Commanders here. They're getting 2.5 against Tennessee. And this is more of a fade of the Titans after I know Joe was in the Titans last week as one of his winners as a dog at Indianapolis. So Tennessee played well. They jumped out to a nice lead, and they beat the Colts on the road. Now they're back on the road again, this time laying points. Washington, they dug themselves a big hole at Detroit 2 weeks ago. They got blown out by Philadelphia, who's the only undefeated team left in the league at home. And then Dallas, who is better than we thought with Cooper Rush. They hung with Dallas for a bit, and the Cowboys pulled away in that game. So you're taking on the Eagles and Cowboys last 2 weeks. Not easier with the Titans. I'm not saying Tennessee is just a cakewalk, but Washington's a big week for them. Chicago at home Thursday, which is the prime game, which I can't even imagine people getting fired up for that one. But I think here, getting some points at home against this Tennessee team that has been very shaky, to say the least, so far through 4 games. I know they could have beat the Giants in week 1, and they got blown out by a really good Buffalo team in week 2. But I just think Washington here, people will be all over Tennessee. There's more of a fade of Tennessee after the win at Indianapolis. And also, look, sometimes, not saying you don't need reasons for a game, but this Commander team, I mean, let's show something here at home. I'm going to take the Commanders plus the points at home as my next pick. Joe, what is your next contest pick?
Yeah, it's the Eagles -5, and I know this one has the makings of the trap game of the week, the obvious one that blows up in your face. But I'm telling you, Kevin, do not get trapped by thinking that this is a trap. Dig into the numbers, and these teams couldn't be further apart. Philly top 5 in both yards per play and yards per play allowed. The Cardinals in the bottom 5 of the NFL in each of those categories. The Eagles have the most sacks in the NFL. The Cardinals have the fewest. So I don't know. Maybe the Cardinals can be kind of competitive in this game. But I just see too big of a gap between these teams. Like, I don't see a reason for this being a trap game or a letdown spot or anything like that for Philly. So, yeah, maybe I'm taking the bait here, but I think that's a great number at -5, so I'll jump all over it.
Yeah, in Arizona, interesting number here, Joe. How about this? They've lost 7 straight at home going back to last year. And it started with that Green Bay game on the Thursday night, the one they had the shot at the end, and Kyler threw the interception when Julio Jones didn't, or not Julio Jones, AJ Green didn't turn around. And the last win, I'm going to give you a quick trivia question. You know when their last home win was? You remember the game or no?
Was it a primetime game?
No, it was the Houston game when they were laying 21. It was like that 32-5 game or 28-5 or that crazy score. That was the last time they won a home game, which is kind of unbelievable for the Cardinals. They've already lost to the Chiefs and Rams. I mean, two pretty good teams, and now the Eagles. So it's not an easy schedule out of the gate. So my next pick, Joe, I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints at home against the Seattle Seahawks. And I had the Saints last week. The biggest problem, I guess, with the Saints in that game, it wasn't about them fumbling late in the first half. They scored a touchdown to go up in the third. They went for two. They were up one. They went for two, which was the right play, but they end up getting it to go up three. If they didn't get it, the math really gets screwed up because it's a 1-point game and Minnesota kicks a field goal to go up two. Maybe there's a shot that I cover. Wasn't the case. And the Saints kicker, Will Lutz, kicked that 60-yarder, made one. The second one hit off the post and the crossbar. But New Orleans at least played a little better in that game against Minnesota. Now they return home. I know the whole getting back from London thing, but Seattle had a good win at Detroit, but Detroit's defense is awful. And we saw how the Seahawks had to win that shootout against the Lions. Now back on the road again at the Superdome. And the Saints team still pretty good defensively. Even though, the Vikings put up some points in them last week, they did hold the Vikings to a lot of field goals in that game as well. I think New Orleans comes out and plays well. Also, you got the Red Rifle back with Andy Dalton. Jameis Winston hurt is fine because I think Andy Dalton could be the better option at this point. Michael Thomas is a question mark for the Saints at receiver going into this game. But I think this line says a lot. I think New Orleans, coming back from London, they've lost a few in a row here. I think they'd get the job done and beat Seattle and cover. That's my fourth contest pick. Now, Joe, your fifth and final contest pick.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up with the Dallas Cowboys +5 in LA versus the Rams. So I think that this Cowboys defense has a pretty big advantage over this Rams offense, which is suddenly limited out there. Take a look at the Rams offensive line, tied for second with the most sacks allowed, the second most sacks allowed, I should say. Cowboys have the second most sacks in the NFL, also creating a lot of pressure. Shockingly, Kevin, the Rams 31st in yards per play. Dallas 4th in yards per play allowed. The big play hasn't been there for LA. They're really missing depth at the wide receiver position. So like I said, a big edge for the Cowboys defense. I think Dan Quinn can put together a pretty good game plan. And how about Cooper Rush, 4-0 here as a starter since last season? He's protecting the football. He's only turned it over once in that span as well. So, I like the Cowboys to give the Rams a game here Sunday.
I'm actually on the other side of this game from you, Joe. And again, you make a lot of valid points in the Cowboys. And I think with Cooper Rush, number one, that people were so down on him out of the gate, which I didn't understand. I had the Cowboys in week 2 against Cincinnati. I thought that Rush is not that huge of a drop-off from Dak, and Dak obviously wasn't healthy in that first game against Tampa Bay. But Cooper Rush is good enough now. I don't know if he's going to be the next star of the Cowboys, but he's played well in his time since coming over as the starter. Now, on the flip side with Dallas, though, they have beaten Washington, who can't score, and they beat, before that, the Giants, who are misleading 3-1. Now, I understand the Rams have had problems offensively, like you mentioned. They had 3 field goals against San Francisco on Monday night. Stafford had the pick 6 at the end that he threw. But the Rams now coming back home, where they've had one major flop against Buffalo. They held off Atlanta in week 2. Good win at Arizona in week 3. I think that this line, again, says something that Dallas, for as well as they played so far with Cooper Rush at quarterback, that all of a sudden now you're getting this many points against the Rams on a short week. And I get that that's very limited travel from San Francisco to LA. That just says something. I'm going to go with the Rams here and lay the points with them as my last pick. And, LA, again, we'll see if they can bounce back at home. And Dallas, look, they've been very impressive considering they lost their starting quarterback. Not many teams can do this in the NFL, lose a star like Dak and still play very well. But I'm going to go with the Rams as my final pick for the contest. So, Joe, we'll see how this goes. Any thoughts before we let you go on the Colts Broncos tonight?
Yeah, I took the under at 42.5, Kevin. Some serious issues for each of these offenses, especially in the red zone. Of course, each of them is missing their starting running back, who might be the best player for each of those offenses outside of, however you want to judge Russell Wilson. Each team giving up a ton of sacks. and plus some serious highlights for each defense as well. So it's another one of those ones like the Eagles pick. Like everything is pointing towards the under. It could absolutely blow up in my face. But yeah, I'm not going to go against the numbers here. I am rooting for a 2-0 Broncos win here, Kevin. So a no sweat win on my under bet. So we'll get the Broncos to get a safety and win 2-0 tonight.
I have the Colts to point, so I'll take that. Like, that's fine. I
Yeah,
don't mind that at all. I have
both
no
win.
issue with that. So, Joe, coming up tomorrow, what do you have on your show on Chasing That Paper at 11 a.m.?
Yeah, it's going to be the biggest show ever of Chasing That Paper in terms of picks because Friday is our typical football show for NFL. So we're going to have 6 total picks for Sunday's games. I think it's going to be 3 sides and 3 totals. The greasy money line parlay will be back, Kevin. 2-1 on the season so far. And of course, we're not going to ignore the Major League Baseball playoffs. So we're going to be picking every game on Chasing That Paper. So we're going to be picking 4 games for that tomorrow. Ian McMillan will be with me. So a stacked show. I got to do some homework here tonight to get ready. But first, Kevin, I'm going upstairs. I have a steak, a strip loin steak that I'm bringing to room temperature. Going to cook that up, drink a Heineken, and get to work.
Nice. Joe Osborne, Chasing That Paper, 11 a.m. on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. You can check it out tomorrow and every day, Monday through Friday. Joe, thanks so much. Best of luck with the picks. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a good show and good luck with your picks, except for that Rams one.
Yeah, I know. We'll see what happens in that one. Thank you, Joe.
See you, man. Take her easy.
That is Joe Osborne right there. And yeah, Joe, a 4-1 week again last week in the contest. So really good job by him. I went 2-3, and the Giants was the only clear-cut winner when they beat the Bears. The Jets kind of had to sweat that one out because I had them plus 3.5. Down 10 in the second half. They come back, and they end up getting the lead. And Zach Wilson led them past the Steelers last week, so that was a good win. But the other ones, Washington was a loser. Cleveland was a loser at Atlanta. They were up in the fourth quarter, and the Saints game, in which they led 2 late, but then the Vikings ended up beating them. All right, let's tell you about BetMGM. They are the king of sports books, and BetMGM, you know all about them. We talk about them every night here on the show. Look, there's a great deal if you are a new customer. Use the bonus code VIBONUS when you sign up with BetMGM. Your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. That's VIBONUS, all one word, no spaces. And your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. It's only available in the following states: Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Nevada, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, Wyoming, and the great province of Ontario. Must be 21 years or older to wager. Again, that is BetMGM. They are the king of sportsbooks. All right, now I want to give you our Major League Baseball best bet. We'll get to the live odds in just a second. We'll get to Major League Baseball best bet now for tomorrow. There's no games tonight. You have the day off, and back at it tomorrow. You know, I know people are going to say, well, you're going against the football. Well, when do you want them to play the games? I mean, they're not going to wait till Tuesday to play the games. They got to get these going. The divisional series will start on Tuesday, but the wild cards begin tomorrow. And for my Major League Baseball best bet for the wild card, it's going to be tomorrow, the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm going to take them. They're in Cleveland to face the Guardians of the Galaxy. And here's the thing with Tampa Bay. These teams are going backwards right now. Or actually, these teams are going opposite directions, I should say. Tampa Bay has struggled. They just got swept by the Red Sox at Fenway. They lost 2 of 3 at Cleveland recently. And the Guardians have played well. The Guardians just faced Kansas City 6 times. And it's kind of a wonky schedule at the end of the season where the Dodgers played the Rockies 6 times at home. The Guardians played the Royals 6 times. The Cardinals played the Pirates 6 times, even though they went 3-3 as far as 3 in St. Louis, 3 in Pittsburgh. But Shane McClanahan starts for Tampa Bay tomorrow. That's the noon game in Cleveland. This guy was in the mix for the AL Cy Young until he got hurt. He was right there with Justin Verlander and Dylan Cease of the White Sox. He was there. And Shane Bieber, look, he's an excellent pitcher for Cleveland. And the Guardians, they don't strike out a lot. Sound team. But I'm going to throw this number out at you, though. 27 games, last 27 games for the Cleveland Guardians. You know how many teams they played that are in the playoffs in that stretch? They played 3 games, and that was against Tampa Bay at home. They played Kansas City a lot. They played the White Sox a lot, the Twins, and I understand the Twins around 500, the White Sox around 500, that they're not complete, they're not awful teams. But Cleveland really wasn't tested. They didn't play Houston. They didn't play the Yankees. They didn't play Toronto. They didn't play teams like that in the final month of the season. They played Seattle Labor Day weekend. So I'm going to the last 27 games. Even against Seattle, they got swept at home, and Seattle's playing Toronto coming up tomorrow. So I think at least in game 1, getting Shane McClanahan at that short price opposite Shane Bieber, I think it's a good look tomorrow. I think, again, I said this earlier, I think all 4 series are fantastic in Major League Baseball. And if you're not a baseball fan, I get it. I can't really sell you on it. But if you are, Padres Mets, you're getting Scherzer and Darvish in game 1. You're getting DeGrom in game 2. That Phillies series is going to be very interesting against the Cardinals at Busch Stadium. And then even that Seattle-Toronto series, the 2 teams that were left out of the playoffs last year. Now they're playing to advance in the playoffs this year. You have the Astros and Yankees waiting in the American League, Braves and Dodgers, who played in the NLCS last year, waiting in the National League. So it should be very interesting with the baseball coming up over not only the weekend, but the next few weeks. And then we have NHL starting next week. We have NBA the week after that. So a very, very busy time. All right. Let's now talk to our friend Patrick Everson, who is out in Las Vegas. Patrick, good to see you. Where are you right now?
I am inside the Cosmopolitan, a recent new acquisition of BetMGM. It's a great spot. Apologize, run a little late. Traffic around the strip today is a little crazy, and plus Thursday is just a busy day anymore. It's just a hugely busy day. Lots going on.
I want to start because I didn't ask you this on Monday. I just forgot, but I'll ask you now. What are you hearing with the World Series odds, with what people are on? Obviously, the Dodgers, the favorite right now, but have you heard anything as far as the baseball odds for the playoffs?
Absolutely. There's a story up on Vegas Insider, just went up a little bit earlier this week, and forgive me while I divert my attention here just to pop it up on my screen here. But I talked with, coincidentally, the folks at BetMGM. Hal Verregelen, who's a sports trader who's been heavily involved in handling BetMGM's baseball odds, World Series odds. He pointed out a couple things. He said, not surprisingly, the Braves have had the greatest uptick in bets recently, so the Braves are kind of in the flavor of the month. And then I heard you a moment ago talking about the Guardians, and he said bettors seem to like the Guardians as well during their surge. But as you pointed out, the Guardians are not seeing, some of the high-level talent, or facing some of the high-level talent, but they're certainly going to face in the playoffs. And, of course, Mattress Mac is the issue here. He's the issue everywhere. He's a huge issue at Caesars because early in the season, he put $3 million on the Astros at 10-1. Well, BetMGM also took a $2 million play from him over the summer at 5-1. So there's a ton of liability to the Astros in multiple spots. And, in fact, Eglin told me, he said, Mattress Mac has taken over just about all of our liability for the World Series. He said that were it not for the Mattress Mac bet, they'd be, they wouldn't be in a very good position with the Yankees or the Cardinals. But because of that, the way I read it, the Yankees and the Cardinals aren't a problem at all because whatever they might lose to them, they're going to gain back on the Astros.
I feel like, Patrick, and I saw the odds earlier today, that there isn't any team that's a long shot. There isn't. This isn't like the NBA playoffs where you have a team that's 41-41 or 40-42 that's playing number one seed has no shot. I feel like even the Guardians, the Padres, the Rays, all the teams I don't say at the bottom of this, I feel like all of them have a shot. I mean, do you think that you can take a flyer on a team 30 or 35-1 to win it?
Absolutely, and so does Halver. Again, a sports trader who does most of BetMGM's World Series odds and baseball odds in general, futures and day-to-day and so forth. And I asked him that question. I said, hey, are there a couple teams that you feel are kind of, like you said, Kevin, these teams are not bad teams. They're just maybe a little bit under the radar because, the Yankees spotlight and Aaron Judge and Mattress Mac and all these other factors playing in that allow some good teams to kind of fly under the radar. He said he really likes the Cardinals and he likes the Blue Jays. He feels like they have a legitimate chance out of the wild card series. He just feels like those two teams might be worth taking World Series, or maybe if you want to back it up a little bit, an AL or an NL future on at this point. He said with the Cards, the mixture of talented young players and veteran stars could be a good recipe for a long run. And with the Blue Jays, he said that offense all around can match up with anyone, and good luck to any team to slow them down if that offense gets hot. So that was two teams that he felt like you could get in that range. And a little bit earlier this week, you get the Cards at around 20, the Blue Jays 15 to 18. Not really 30, obviously, but certainly longer than Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, Astros. You can certainly get a little more bang for your buck with those teams, and maybe they make a run.
Let's shift over, Patrick, to the NFL tonight, the standalone game, because we have no baseball, we have no college football. This Colts-Broncos game, your Broncos like to say, they're laying 3.5. I mean, I'm not going to say how do you get excited about this. It's the NFL. It's the only thing on. I get it. But this game before the season started seemed like, oh, wow, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, there's something there. And these teams have been such a disappointment. Do you have any faith that this could be a good game? And what are you hearing where the tickets are at, where the money's at?
Right. Well, it's fun. Like you said, I've got a 25-1 ticket on the Colts Super Bowl. I was kind of a believer over the summer. I talked to some smart people about them, and I just thought, you know what, let's get in on this just in case this is a situation with Matt Ryan, kind of like it was for Matthew Stafford with the Rams. And obviously, at least to this point, there's a lot of season left, but at least at this point, I'm surely being proven wrong there, as are others. I don't know. Something funny about this tells me that both these teams might just wake up a little bit and score a little tonight, but I don't know if that would incline me to bet the over because they haven't shown me anything to prove otherwise. But I just went back and forth on text messages with BetMGM's Jason Scott. He's the vice president of trading. He's actually in Denver for the game tonight. He's out there checking it out, which is good on him. I'd love to be there. It's a great place to be this time of year. But he said, look, we're going to be fans of the blue and white, not the blue and orange. He said definitely they're going to be Colts fans tonight. He said it was kind of slow early on, but the money has started to pick up for the Broncos. I'm sure there's some very strong regional bias, not recency bias. The Broncos recency is not that good, but regional bias creeping in BetMGM's market and probably other sportsbooks markets in Colorado on the Broncos, despite the fact they haven't looked that well. But he said they're going to be Colts fans for sure. I did an update a little bit earlier this afternoon from DraftKings, and Denver crept up. Yesterday, this was kind of more of a two-way game, and now it's about 3-2 tickets Denver, and coming up on about 2.5 to 1 money Denver. That's at DraftKings this afternoon, and so I can see why they may need the Colts tonight. It's not, as you said, it's the NFL, so it's probably going to get ratings, and people are going to tune in, and there's no baseball tonight, but man, this matchup a month ago looked like it could be something special, and now it's just like, I'll watch it because there's nothing else on.
Patrick, I'll give you a lot of credit because you didn't even flinch when that glass broke behind you. So
it's in Vegas, man.
You just kept it going. But no, I feel like with this game tonight that I don't want to say people don't like either side. I feel like people are almost fading the other side and not backing the one side. It's almost like I'm fading the Colts because they haven't looked good. I'm fading the Broncos because they haven't looked good, but I don't love either side. It's just I'm going against the other side. Do you feel that's the way people are thinking?
I think that's a very fair way to put it, and maybe taking into account that the Colts don't have Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, the Broncos, you and I discussed earlier this week, they lost a running back as well for the season. Taylor looks like, hopefully he'll only be out this week, but both teams going to be shorthanded. I do feel like there's something to that. You could look at both teams and say, well, I'm not playing that. I'm going to play the other side because of the shortcomings I feel this team has, and vice versa. So I could certainly see that. I'm more inclined tonight. I don't have anything going on this, but I will before kickoff. I'm going to do something. Or I might just sit tight and see how the first drive or two unfolds and see if I can get a better number on whatever I feel, whether it's Broncos or not, even if I'm going against the Broncos on the in game, because I just don't have a good feel for these two teams. I don't know what they are. They aren't what we thought they were going to be. Dennis Green channeling right there.
Dennis Green is always allowed here. For Sunday, what are you hearing with anything kind of lopsided on one side or the other on any of the NFL games?
Well, I'll actually take a look literally at kind of relatively up to the minute splits from DraftKings. And I was actually looking at these a little bit earlier just before I came on with you. In terms of ticket count, Titans, I think, are the only team at DK right now that's running over 80% on tickets this week. But there are a few other teams in the ballpark. And that's let me back up to this Titans game again because I thought it was 84% at Washington as a short favorite at Washington too. Not laying very many points there against a Washington team that's suspect. But the Seahawks are on the cusp of that 4-1. The Niners are on that cusp of 4-1. The Chiefs against the Raiders on Monday night, looking like 3-1 tickets, but 6-1 money. So a lot of early money on the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to be a big public play. And if the public has a good day Sunday, basically saying if the favorites have a good day Sunday, man, everything's going to run to the Chiefs. And the bookmakers here at BetMGM, at Cosmo, and up and down the strip and across the country, they're going to be big Raiders fans if the favorites have a good day on Sunday. But yeah, a few kind of lopsided ticket counts, like I said, in favor of the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Titans on Sunday. And all three of those teams are also in the high 70, low 80% money range as well. Tickets and money on the spread.
One college game I want to ask you about, Patrick. The Alabama-Texas A&M game, Saban, Jimbo, the revenge game for Bama after losing to Texas A&M last year. Bama's laying 23.5, 24 in that one. Is that, again, heavily on Alabama since Texas A&M's quarterback is out too?
Well, I just did an update on this afternoon from Caesars, and I was hoping they'd provide a comment on this game because I really think I like this game a lot. They provided some commentary, a little context on some of the other games. Not so much on this one, and I think maybe part of that is everybody's waiting and seeing whether Bryce Young is going to play. He's got the sprained shoulder and such. But point spread tickets 2-1. This is as of this afternoon at Caesars books across the country. Point spread tickets 2-1. Money about 2.5-1 on Alabama. And look, I mean, if Bryce Young plays, I think I'm probably going to play Alabama first half in this game. I know it's a trendy thing and a public thing to do, but with that back and forth off season between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, I feel like if Alabama has any opportunity to just hand Jimbo Fisher his lunch, Nick Saban specifically, that he's going to hand Jimbo Fisher his lunch. But that said, keep a close eye on this. If Bryce Young doesn't play, it's going to be a little bit different. Granted, he wasn't in the whole game last week, but it's certainly going to make a difference. Watch what that line does if any news breaks on Friday or even early Saturday. This is a night kickoff, so if he is playing, either way, there's a lot of time for money to go into this game, and there will be a lot of money going into this game with a Saturday night kickoff.
Patrick Everson, always great work joining us. He is live at the Cosmo in Las Vegas. You can find him on Twitter at @PatrickE_Vegas. Patrick, thanks again. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you. Actually, I won't talk to you Monday. I'm in for Joe on Chasing That Paper, but I'll talk to you probably next Thursday for Chicago and Washington. So I hope you get fired up for that game.
As fired up as I am for this one coming up, even though I'm a Bronco fan. So that should tell you all. But yes, I'll look forward to it. Have a great weekend. Best to everybody watching and tuning in. We appreciate it.
All right, that is Patrick Everson. You can find his work at Vegas Insider. Always a great job covering the basically all the numbers. He's going to tell you where the numbers are at, and he talks to all the big people out in Vegas. So always great work from Patrick right there. Want to tell you now about the Vegas Insider app, and it's really cool considering it's free. Like that's always a good thing. To get anything free is always good. But at the Vegas Insider app, this is what you have when you download it. And you get it off of either Apple or Android device, or you can get it on Apple or Android devices. That's where you download the Vegas Insider app. Up to date, easy to navigate odds for every major sport. Latest shows, best bet videos and podcasts, props, trends, futures, news, all on the free Vegas Insider app. Again, go to Apple devices, Android devices. You can download it for free, and you bet better with the Vegas Insider app. Do it today. It will only help you out. And it's a great look and feel. And again, the Vegas Insider app you could find on Apple or Android devices. Go to the Play Store or get it through Apple as well. And you'll be all set with that. All right. Before we get out of here tonight, I want to tell you about, like we do every Monday and Thursday night, the top props for the football game. So obviously with it being the Colts and the Broncos tonight, let's go from BetMGM. Here are the top props for tonight, up to the minute, up to the second right now before we get into this big game at around 8:15 on Amazon Prime, which is still weird to say. All right. Broncos right now laying 3.5 against the Colts, total of 42. Broncos minus 185 on the money line. Colts plus 150 on the money line. All these numbers, again, courtesy of BetMGM. Broncos first half. laying 2.5 at -120. Indianapolis plus 2.5 plus 100. Total 20, shaded to the over, -115. Denver's -165 in the money line for the first half. Indy plus 135. First quarter, Denver -0.5 plus 110. Indy plus 0.5 -140. Total of 7.5, shaded to the under, -125. Denver -155 for the first quarter. Indy plus 120 for the first quarter. Now for the player props. Matt Ryan, 231.5 is passing yards, shaded to the over of -120. Russell Wilson, 235.5. That one's shaded to the under of -115. Now, as far as passing touchdowns, see this number. Matt Ryan, 1.5, under -175. So you think Matt Ryan's going to throw 2 touchdown passes plus 130. Nice little return there. Russell Wilson, 1.5 touchdowns, -155 on the under, plus 120 on the over. Now let's go to the running backs, considering Javonte Williams is out and Jonathan Taylor's out. Here's what you're dealing with. Melvin Gordon of the Broncos, 60.5, -115 each way. Nyheim Hines of the Colts, 34.5, shaded to the over, -115. Phillip Lindsay, 37.5. Mike Boone of the Broncos, that's right, Mike Boone, when you think of great Bronco running backs, 31.5. Russell Wilson, 12.5. Matt Ryan at 2.5, over -120. Now, as far as the receivers go in this game for yardage, Jerry Jeudy of the Broncos, 50.5. Cortland Sutton, of the Broncos, 65.5. Michael Pittman of the Colts, 62.5. Mo Alley Cox, 19.5. Melvin Gordon, 13.5. Paris Campbell, 21.5. As far as receptions go, Michael Pittman at 5.5, under -155, over plus 115. Cortland Sutton, 4.5, over -140. Jerry Jeudy, 4.5, under -155. Nyheim Hines, 3.5, over -145. Kicking props, Brandon McManus of the Broncos, 6.5, over -125. Chase McLaughlin of the Colts, 6.5, under -130. So those are the big individual props. Russell Wilson to throw for 300 yards or more, plus 375. Matt Ryan to throw over 300 yards, plus 375. So if you think any of these quarterbacks can have somewhat of a decent game, get some nice plus money on it. So maybe take a shot with both those two. Matt Ryan to throw 2 or more interceptions, plus 325. Russell Wilson to throw 2 or more interceptions, plus 350. So a couple looks there on those. So that is it. Those are the props courtesy of BetMGM. All right, my thanks to Joe Osborne as well as Patrick Everson for joining us tonight here on the show. And Joe Maddon's back in tomorrow at 6 p.m. And I'll wrap up the week for Down to the Wire. Joe Osborne, 11 a.m. tomorrow for Chasing That Paper. And again, you can find our best bet videos on our Vegas Insider channel at our Vegas Insider TV on YouTube. We have 14 best bet videos up already, so you can check them out now. My thanks to Spencer Ray for running the show as well. I am Kevin Rogers. We appreciate it as always. And remember one thing you always got to think of. Best of luck with your bets.